recording is all, and welcome everybody to this teaching lesson. And I am your teacher, Kevin Grumman. I have, in relation to the logistics class, I have flown Logi since my very first fleet. That fleet was so fun that I decided that Eve was worth playing because going into that fleet, I said to myself, if there's no reason to make money if PvP isn't fun, and so I will never play the game again if this is not very, very good. And then that was about 7 years ago, and I have been playing since then. So you will know my opinion on how much fun Logi is. But before I get real into it, do I have any initial questions or things that you're worried might not get covered in the lesson? And I'll make sure it gets covered in the appropriate place with context and all, if there's any serious questions that or stuff like that. While people are typing that out, I'll also mention that I've flown Logi for the Alliance tournament, which is one of the very biggest tournaments in very high level play. I've flown Logi for 250-man fleets before, in big fights. I've flown Logi for me and two other people in a very much solo small gang context. I've just today we were flying Maulers with augers, and I was flying Logi then too with 30 people in fleet. So I have if you have any questions about Logi, chances are very, very good that I will have an answer for you. And following the class teaching portion and some Q&A, I will be doing a practical. Logi is 100% worth it for an alpha. That first fleet I mentioned, I was an alpha when I did that Logi experience. The T1 Logi ships are perfectly serviceable. They're not quite as good as their T2 counterparts, which is to be expected, honestly. But they are absolutely still helpful in a fleet environment, both PvP and PvE, depending on your level. If it's like incursions, maybe you won't be able to fly it as an alpha, but especially for stuff like home fronts, for any PvP fleet, a T1 Logi is still going to be helpful. If not as good as its counterpart, it will still be helpful for sure. Alrighty, let's get into it then. And class rules, you're free to ask questions in the text chat, as people are, or I will be able to take them at any time you want to ask a question, go for it. There will be a specific questions Q&A section at the end, so if it's a bigger question that'll take longer to answer, feel free to hang on to that question. Zarbal, PvP Logi is particularly different from Incursion Logi, mostly, and because in Incursion Logi there's a lot of control going on that'll make it easier to do Logi. There's a lot of complicating factors in PvP, which we will get into. But yes, if you have any questions that you can ask right away or hold it till the end, either way, I'm fine with it. If it's a question I know will be answered, I might tell you that we'll get to there. Or don't worry, if it's not specifically going to be mentioned, then I'll probably answer it right away, or say ask me again at the end if I want to be moving along, kind of stuff like that. And I have asked specifically if I can record the class. No one's had any issue with it. If you are going to the practical, make sure that you are docked up in Korsiki or are working your way over there. You got plenty of time. But class overview: what is logistics? Logi modules and ships, the character skills relevant, and the player skills. That's like piloting, manual piloting, positioning, all the nitty gritty that you as a pilot are going to be doing in a fight or as Logi. But first off, what is logistics? So logistics is a term in Eve used for remote repair, generally speaking. So that's mostly remote shield boosts and remote armor boosts. When people are talking Logi, there's a very good chance that they mean either shield boosts or armor boosts to make sure that people stay alive. Technically, Logi also includes things like remote capacitor transfer, remote tracking support, remote sensor boosting, and remote hull repair. Remote hull repair in particular, not super useful in general, because it's just not very good in comparison to its shield and armor counterparts. The remote sensor boosting, you might hear called a re-SIBO, sensor booster as just SIBO, is very useful, especially in a lot of PvP instances. And same with remote tracking support. You might hear remote RTCs, remote tracking computers, where you're aiding other ships. Very useful in PvP, especially in like smaller gang stuff, where you can shove some of the mid slots into your Logi and make other ships stronger. And then remote cap transfers, we'll talk about a fairly large amount because we will be mentioning in cap chain Logi and stuff like that. This is especially useful in PvP when people like to nuke you and try to kill you. But what do we want to fly Logi? A lot of PvP fleets are going to be backboned by their Logi. That is going to be the thing that makes them worth flying and able to punch up into other fleets and be able to fight effectively. It also means that you don't have to lean as heavily on other tactics to try to stay alive, and lets people just sit and do DPS constantly for every other ship in fleet. Means that every other ship can be more focused on DPS and less focused on tank. Also, everyone loves a Logi. Everyone loves the Logis, guys. It's so much fun, and you also make the fleet way scarier. And especially with Eve Uni, you will get SRP for Logi ships, which is very fair and generous. Some of the fun parts about Logi is that it's very performance sensitive, where your skill as a pilot, not like SP, but your like ability to micromanage your modules and positioning, will vastly increase your effectiveness to the fleet. Which is also the painful part of it, is that if you don't know what you're doing, you can lose a lot of your effectiveness as a Logi and not help as much as you might otherwise. And because of the Logi's strength, everyone's going to be shooting you. That's a very common primary target, especially early on in a fight. You want to get rid of the Logi so you can punch through the rest of the fleet, no problems. And Logi does not get on kill mails currently. I say currently because CCP, the creators of the game, have been talking about how they want to get Logi on kill mails for the past decade or more. So, maybe someday, but today is not that day. You'll have to use, as mentioned, Sal mentions, you have T1 damage drones frequently that'll help you get on kill mails, but they're not super reliable and will frequently die, especially in bigger fleets. They also have to burn around, all that stuff. So you're just less likely to get on kill mails, and especially if you're focusing fully on your doing your reps and lodging, then you're probably not going to be like, oh yes, I need to lock the primary, send out my drones, put the drones on the primary, and do that while trying to keep everyone alive still. It's a lot to manage. So less likely, but we take it on the chin, you know? It's just how life goes. So, in action, that means that as a Logi, you're going to be locking up your purple names in fleet. You're going to be activating your repair modules, and depending on the modules, you might get at the end or beginning of the cycle, and keeping them alive. You'll see them locked up in the top right if you haven't moved it anyways. And when you are getting repairs, you will see a little icon above your capacitor. Also, you will see specific combat messages popping up in space. And this, I will note, is local to you and the target. Nobody else will receive these, unlike for things like points and scrams, where everyone sees when someone gets scrammed. These are only for you and the target. Otherwise, you will not see them. No one else sees it. So it's a good measure to see how well you are doing personally. Or if you're catching reps, how much you are needing to catch, stuff like that. So this portion is a little bit more about the nature of the modules in particular, where, for example, just like how the compact, enduring, scoped, it's the same for all modules. Compact will take less fitting room, enduring takes less capacitor, scoped gives you more range, and T2 will take more fitting room and cap, but will pump out more repair rate and more range, even than the scoped. So, especially if you are better skilled, you want to see if you can fit T2s generally, so that you get the extra output. And if I remember correctly, they're also more cap efficient, as in like how much HP per second you get per gigajoule per second is better on the T2 as well. So they're very good to level up to T2 when available. There's also blue modules for small and medium reps that'll put them even above Tech 2 in terms of range and repair rate and and make the cap demand even less and stuff like that, but those are fairly expensive. So, T1 Logi frigates. If you're ever going out on an Magic Merlin fleet, you might be flying a Bantam or a Burst to get hit for Logi. If you're going out on like an Assault Armor frigates, you'll probably be in an Inquisitor or Navitas. If you're going out on FLF, it'll probably be leaning more into Navitas rather than Inquisitor. So, advantages of T1 Logi. They're very, very cheap. If you've ever flown with Magic Merlins, you know that burst is maybe 5 mil tops, closer to 2 to 3 mil, most likely. Since they're small, they're very fast, and you can use that speed to do a lot of positional advantage and try to like get away from threats to you and things like that, and get closer to your friends that need you. Since you're so fast, you can get over there and help them. And with that frigate comes a low signature radius. While you're moving around, it's not very easy to hit you, but with that small size, you're very, very squishy. If you've ever flown in a burst, you'll know that's squishy and you'll die very, very quick. And as opposed to the larger ships, you don't get a ton of rep output. You can do some fancy things with fitting, like oversized medium shield reps, like Ancils, to squeeze a little bit more out, or squeeze a lot more out, especially with the burst. But especially when compared to their larger counterparts, you're just going to get less output, and you get very, very short range. And that's part of where that fast and agile is going to be very important, because you need to get over to people to save them, because you get like very, very limited range. And just like all the other Logi ships, you're going to be really suffering if you're missing out on fitting skills and capacitor skills especially. You'll see a lot of frigates used in frigate and destroyer fleets. As I mentioned, there's fits on these for for all of our frigate doctrines, essentially, and I mentioned some of those. T2s, T2 Logi frigates will be locked off from Alpha, as unfortunately they will be tougher. They're going to be tougher and faster and tankier in general than their T1 counterparts. They'll be able to push out more reps than their T1 counterparts, but they're going to be expensive. Where you might pay 2 to 5 mil for a T1 and frigate for a T1 Logi. For T2s, you're going to be looking at 50 to 100 mil. Yes, I'm going to be live streaming the practical on Discord. It will at least be from the point of view of the person shooting, at least, which will be a bit of a different experience than others, but I'm sure someone else will be available to stream it to Discord as well. Well, we'd love to have you, Sal. Thank you. And especially with some of the frigates like Deacons, they're tough to fit effectively, especially if you're missing out on some of the fitting skills, like your Power Grid Management 5 is going to be nice, your CPU Management 5 will be very, very nice. I mentioned FLF. FLF heavily uses Deacon and Thalia as opposed to their T1 counterparts. You'll see these frequently in like T3 destroyer fleets and Kikimora fleets and things like that, where you want a lot tougher so that it doesn't just get sniped out in a big fight, and you want the extra rep output especially. So, as we're about to go into the section for cruisers, you'll notice that before this, we haven't mentioned anything about remote cap boosters. This is because frigates, the Logi frigates, get no bonuses for remote cap, so they will almost always be fit with all of their high slots filled with reps. That they're all only going to be rep boats. They'll have maybe a single damage drone, and depending on who you ask, that maybe should be a rep drone as well. Oh, and you get on no kill mails, and we live with it sometimes. But as we're going into cruisers, there's going to be two different differentiations here. Some of them will have bonuses to their cap chain bonuses that make their remote cap transfers more effective and ridiculously cheap, and put out a ridiculously large amount. And so that there will be a divide. In the slides, it'll call it solo versus chain, where solo, or the Minotaur and Galente, Minotaur for shield, Galente for armor, they get a bonus for remote repair on Logi drones, especially. That'll increase their rep output, and they can sustain themselves independently on their own capacitor nominally. So, like, in a perfect world, they don't need any support, but I'll tell you, Scythe and Executor, the T1s, they're really going to struggle for capacitor, and you'll need to be managing cap, which is another thing you'll need to do. Versus the cap chain ones, which are Caldari and Amar, and they get bonus for remote repair and remote cap transfers. This is what's going to be the cap chain. We're going to practice that a fair bit today. And usually flown, sharing capacitor with other Logi pilots. This is a usually because in a lot of situations you'll only have one and it'll need to be solo capable, but it can still take advantage of those remote capacitor transfer bonuses and be very effective at handing out cap to other ships in fleet at great ranges for great efficiency. Yeah, and you might see some fits come out of that soon in KSG and stuff like that for kitey small gang fits in the doctrines of EV Uni. But for now, we'll look at the solo ones, which for T1s is going to be Scythe and Executor. I might shorten it to Exec. So Logi cruisers in general pump out a lot of reps. You'll be looking at around double the output of most T1 frigates and around 50% more than a T2 frigate Logi. Yeah, and so that's at T1 already. You're going to be outputting more than T2 Logi frigates. You get very strong bonuses to repair her, and you get very strong bonuses. Very, very strong. You get more slots to fit them in. You get bonuses for Logi drones on the Scythe and Executor. The problem with these is that because they need to be independently cap stable or try to be cap stable, they usually take heavy sacrifices on their tank and mobility to be able to get closer to cap stability, and frequently they still won't be cap stable, even with perfect skills. So you will need to manage your cap, you'll need to be cap injecting, you'll need to be doing a lot of extra work, but in exchange, you get tons of rep power, especially compared to their smaller counterparts. What you might notice when you're looking at fits is that the frigates are generally pretty stable, especially if you put you're not going for a full passive fit. If you're going for a small inject, they're going to be stable, no problem. The Scythe and Executor are going to have struggles with cap, basically no matter what. Unless all you're doing with them is trying to make them stable and not put any tank on, you're going to need to do some cap management, even with perfect skills. Today, and as opposed to the cap chain ones, Osprey and Og will be flying some Ospreys today. They get the similar bonuses to repair boosts, and they, instead of getting bonuses to drones rep output, they get bonuses to her capacitor transmission. So they're more efficient, take less capacitor. They also give out more capacitor, and it means that they need to put almost zero fitting into getting cap stable, except for their high slots to keep that chain going. The problem is that if you want that cap chain to keep alive your cap successfully, you're going to need to be well organized with the rest of your members. You're going to need to be close to your other members. You're going to need to communicate with your other members. It's going to be very much a team affair. You will not, in the majority of fleets, you will not be able to act as a solo agent in an Og or Osprey unless you have fitted specifically to do that. There's ways to make them solo stable and make use of them that way, but it's going to be quite demanding. Versus in a big fleet, especially like the one we had today with LLA and in Maulers and Ogs, they are very strong when put together, and if they get separated or they aren't able to communicate together, they are extremely weak and easy to tear apart. The things that'll break them up is stuff like ECM, positional tactics, and stuff like bushes that can split them up and things like that. They're very sensitive to those kinds of disruptions. Usually, fleets, cruiser, and bigger ships. You might see Ogs even supporting stuff like battleships. So, the fitting of a Scythe. Note that I said that Scythe and Executor are going to really struggle because you need to dedicate valuable slots to doing cap stable things. You'll notice that in your highs, you got a full set of remote shield boosters. You get a single large shield extender or two hardeners. You're your prop mod and a cap recharger. The fact that you need to take up an extra mid slot for it and 4 of your low slots trying to be cap stable is really suffering. You could put mobility down there, you could put more fitting to get more defense on there, or stuff like that, which is why you'll not see Scythe super duper frequently. They're kinda stinky. But you'll see that you're putting so many slots towards cap stability versus something like an AUG where you could honestly swap out the battery here for just another SIBO and it'd still be stable. That battery is just for cap resistance stuff. For newt resistance, I should say. And you'll notice that in the tank, it only has tank. So armor slots go in the low slots. It doesn't need to dedicate any cap support in its low slots and can get full tank on there, which means that AUG can get very, very tanky. You got in your mids, you got your prop mod and other, pretty much. See, sensor boosters, very, very nice. You'll also notice that those 2 high slots, those mediums, will output the same as larges, unaugmented larges. A secret bonus fact is that a medium cap transfer on a T1 cruiser puts out the same amount as a large cap transfer on a T2 cruiser, which means that they can sit in chain with them no problem. Very, very interesting one. The advanced logic like T2 cruisers, you're going to get more rep boost powers and expanded capabilities. Scimitar and Oneros will not struggle nearly as much as their T1 counterparts in terms of cap, and will be significantly more tanky and will output significantly more reps, especially since they get access to large reps instead of just mediums that are alternatives in T1 get. Basilisk and Guardian get the same cap chain bonuses, and can actually sit in chain, as I mentioned, with their T1 counterparts. They're also obscenely tanky. Bazzi and Guardian will be 2 to 3 to 4 times as tanky as their T1 counterparts, same with Simi and Oneros, and Scimitar and Oneros in particular will get a bonus to their signature radius, which makes them extremely hard to hit and very tanky, especially in bigger fleets. Spider tanking is distributed net remote reps on like all ships in fleet, where you're going to be running both DPS and Logi at the same time in the same ships. Usually that won't be in Logi ships because they don't get any DPS bonuses. It'll usually look like Vexers or Arbitrators or things like that. Usually drone boats are frequent choices for them, but it's just spreading out the reps throughout the fleet so that there's less points of failure, but it's more demanding on individual members. Let's look at some of the SP investments that are going to be helping you here. The recommended starting levels, very nice. The remote armor repair systems will decrease the cap usage. Shield emission systems will decrease the cap usage of those repairs of armor and shield and make it so it's much easier to get it cap stable or close to cap stable. The Empire frigate level is going to help you put out more reps and also be more stable. That gives you bonuses to cap consumption of the shield reps and armor reps appropriately. Same with the Empire cruiser levels. To get T2 ships, you will need to have it to 5. You'll need to have it to 5 to do things like the Guardians and other T2 cruisers, and the same with the T2 frigates. The recommended to have to 5 on these because for if you're going into the T2 ships is because you're spending so much freaking money on them. You don't want to be spending even more desperately trying to make them cap stable without that support skills. Same thing with Logi frigate and Logi cruiser. I would almost recommend 5, but 5 is a really, really long train for the T2 skill. But it's very, very nice to have and opens up some extra opportunities, especially for Logi cruisers. The capturing cruisers, you need at least 1, but if you're going into T2, I suggest 4 or 5 at least. And of course, I mentioned power grid management, cap management, energy grid upgrade. It's CPU management. I don't think is on here. Oh, there it is. That they're going to be very nice to have once you're getting into cruisers and T2 ships, especially because they are going to be quite tight Frigates, you have a little bit more leeway because of the size. Capacitor management, going to be very, very nice. On and on, right? Fitting on Logi ships can frequently be very tight because you're trying to squeeze every single drop you can out of them and make it so that they can have as much opportunity to do their job as possible. Oh, and speaking of doing their job, you can open up your simulations. There's important things that you'll want to see if you go ahead. For the people doing the practical, I'll grab you a fit real quick. If you're planning on doing the practical, well, you can see that in Fleet, I just posted the Osprey fleet, the Osprey fit that we'll be using. You'll see that you have optimal range of 27 kilometers and a range within of 66. Stuff like that is going to be very useful for you to know if you're going to be positioning yourself, and also to see if you're in or out of range. You'll notice that on these Ospreys especially, you're going to deplete capacitor at an insane speed. Don't worry, you'll be getting cap in from an ally. And so, if you were flying, for example, a Scythe or one of the frigates, you'll want to know how roughly how frequently you're going to need to be injecting, or how frequently you will need to be turning off reps to get back to stable, and you'll need to keep an eye on that when you are flying. One of the important things about Logi is that frequently you will have to either position yourself or position separately from the fleet to maximize your effectiveness. As mentioned here, and as I mentioned before, Logi is a high priority target. If you get rid of you, every ship in Fleet is now less tanky and easier to kill, if killable at all. You want to stay as far away from the enemy as possible, but you also want to keep all your friends alive, so you need to get used to dancing around your optimal to fall off, keeping your reps on, stuff like that. And depending on the situation, if the enemy is targeting you down and neglecting your fleet, you can do things like pulling range immediately, to force them away from your fleet and stuff like that. Other tactics to increase your effectiveness. Pictured here is an example of where you would want to be positioned. You want to force the enemy fleet to have to burn all the way through your fleet into you and to be as far away as possible. Especially once you get into Logi cruisers, you get very substantial range. Like for armor, you'll get around 50 plus kilometers. For shield, you'll get 30 plus kilometers. Very, very nice. And you want to be keeping an eye out for where the enemy is and staying as far away from them as possible while staying within your optimal range for your allies. This is going to be... We're not going to practice this in the practical today. We're going to be mostly focusing on the next part, but this is good to keep in mind. And if you're ever flying in a Logi with separately anchored, watching how it's done, and then copying best you can. So this is going to be staggering repairs. It's the fancy term we use for spreading them out, making sure that you're not activating them all at the same time when you don't need to. Some of the advantages of it is that it means that you're not less likely to over-rep, which is the term we use for if you repair and the enemy ship's tank is full already, then the extra repair from that cycle goes to waste. And it could have been used better, either saving the cap or be ready to go to the next person or whatever. It also means that it makes people less jumpy with the constant repair flow. However, and the other thing not mentioned here specifically is that it makes you more mobile in being able to switch reps. So if you're in a fleet that against another fleet in PvP, frequently when someone catches reps and isn't dying anymore, the enemy fleet will stop shooting it and shoot something else, hoping to get the kill still. And so if you have all of your reps together, you're going to take that gamble of, is it going to be around 2 seconds before I can switch reps, or is it going to be around 8 seconds if the rep cycle just started before I can get any repairs to the next target? If you have staggered reps, though, you're almost guaranteed to have one that's about to get off cycle that you can immediately put onto the next person getting shot at. For example, in this image, this first repair is maybe 2 seconds away. If all of them had been like this last repair, then you're going to be waiting 6 seconds before you can get any repairs to your target. Whereas for this way, you can get them very, very quickly and hopefully keep people from dying. shield boosts apply at the start of the cycle, so the instant you hit a shield boost is the instant you give them shields. You'll instantly see her shields jump up when you hit the button. Versus armor repairs, which apply at the end of the cycle. So, if in exchange, armor repairs have a little bit more range and also cycle a little bit quicker than their shield counterparts. And this is especially important for when you're staggering cycles on armor reps, because as you don't know how much tank your target will have left when the cycle completes. That's 6 seconds away on medium ships. You don't know how deep they're going to be by then. And if someone's in immediate need of repairs and you don't think they'll make it through the stagger, you can also just slam reps, is the term I use anyways. Yeah, slamming reps is when you activate them all at the same time instantly. You're trying to save someone that's about to go down, and you just don't want to drop someone to drop. The other thing is that if you're unstable, which many of the solos especially will be, the solo cruisers, then your greatest enemy is going to be capping yourself out. This gets into a little bit of capacitor mechanics, where your peak recharge is at about 30 to 35% of your capacitor, not at 0. And if you cap yourself to 0, then you can't do any more reps. And also, it's going to take forever before you can do reps again. And in the same way that there was an icon above the capacitor, there will be an icon if you're getting neuted. And that's going to be another important consideration to not capping yourself out. For the cap chain logis, they will be very, very stable with their cap chain running. But if you start getting neuted, then suddenly you can break a cap chain by neuting somebody out. And that can decrease the amount of reps the entire logi squad can output significantly. In the same way, neuts on a frigate will also vastly decrease the amount of reps it can output, because it needs to wait till its cap injector cycles again. Things like that. Those are the more advanced skills of, if you know what you're doing, you can get a lot more out of your ship under pressure. If you don't, then you can get a lot less out. But that's more of a practice thing. We'll cover some of that in the practical element. So, the main place you'll be looking for who needs reps is in the broadcast window. You'll open up Fleet, you go to broadcast, and you'll see broadcast for shield. If you want to target someone, you can hold control and click on the option, and that'll instantly start locking them. Also, if you already have that target locked, it will select them in your locked targets, which is a hot tip. I have, similarly to this, I have the broadcast color-coded. You don't want to rep the enemy that everybody is shooting, because you'll also see the target broadcasts in this fleet history. You can also filter out target broadcasts and vice versa in your, what's it called again? In the broadcast settings. There we go. That's the English. And you can go to the as listed here, 3-dot menu top right, go to broadcast settings. You can set the colors you'd like, and you could also set the ones you don't want to see. If you start locking enemy ships that everybody is shooting, you don't want to rep them and they take up your lock slots. And especially if you're an alpha, you have extremely limited lock slots. I believe they max out at 5 locks at a time, and that's going to be miserable for a cap chain logi that is locking 2 of them onto your cap chain buddies. The other place that you're going to be looking a lot for who needs reps is in the watch list, which is a list of all of your fleet mates that you select. Generally, when you're logi, you're going to want to put all of them in there, and the names will flash when they're taking damage, and you'll also see their health bars in the watch list when you are undocked and on grid with them. You can similarly control-click target things on your watch list, and color-code them as you like. So, one of the main things we'll be doing over the practical is cap chain management. In general, for Eve Uni and for many groups, you will go 1 up and 1 down. and that is how you will know who you want to be feeding cap to, because they're also going up, one down in this example here. Mongo will be feeding up into Mike, and Lotus will be feeding down into Mike, and thus Mike will be receiving 2 cap transfers, and that will make them very, very stable. And so, generally, you will have a separate chat for Logi. In this instance, we probably won't because we're almost all Logi. You can also do a similar operation by looking in a Logi squad, which is what we'll be doing today, to see who your one up, one down is. Actually, in fact, I might have a separate channel for the Logi squad because some of us are cap chain and some of us are not cap chain. If you die, you generally want to leave that channel so that people and like leave a message like -1, and so that people know that they need to reorder their cap chain. For example, if Mongo died here, Mike needs to now cap Next Doom instead, and Next Doom needs to cap him back to make sure the chain stays alive under pressure. You can do a similar thing for if you're jammed. Instead of just leaving the chat, you can just put a J in the chat, and that lets people know who to skip over you for a few cycles. And especially if it's not a strong jammer like a Griffin or something like that, usually it'll just expire before it becomes a cap issue. Mentions Mumble here. I don't think we've used Mumble in years. The one way that you can set up to have a very quick cap chain set and set it up when you're on grid extremely quickly is organizing your watch list to who you need to cap with. I like to do it a little bit differently than the slides, where I put my one up, one down in the middle of the group, and then my second up, second down, above and below them, etc. So that I know if someone starts going down, I can immediately reset the chain very, very quickly. So, pilots, if you're in a group that does sub-channels on Mumble, you can whisper to only the Logis and discuss amongst yourselves who needs reps, all that kind of stuff. Logi Commander can call, broadcast, and prioritize targets. You can still do that in Discord, or I'll do it sometimes when I'm LCing, stuff like that. And your repair priors are generally your Fleet Commander first, other Logi second, Snowflakes third, and then the rest of the fleet. Because that's generally the order that enemies will shoot in. Headshots are common, getting rid of Logi is common, getting rid of annoying ships is common, and then getting rid of the rest. Alrighty, I am spot on time-wise, right around the 45-minute mark. Do I have questions that people would like to ask before we get into the practical element? Valenria asks, are you normally putting everything into one alley or splitting? Generally, I will put things in line. And I will put it on the left side of my screen, and I will make that line at the entire height of my screen. So it's like a quarter of my screen is taken up by the watch list. How you like to do it is up to you. If you like to put your Logi in one stack and your DPS in another, that's totally fine. That's up to personal interpretation. I like to do one big line. But good question. Does Randrick go to Ergen and Next Doom? Let me go back. Yep, Randrick. So if you're at the bottom or top of the list, then you cycle over to the next. So Ergen would go up to Randrick, and Randrick would go to Ergen, and then they're up and down appropriately. Correct. Yep, thank you very much for coming, Zerbal. Before I go on to the practical, do I have any questions about Logi as a whole? I know we didn't cover capital Logi. I don't have a ton of experience in capital Logi, which is Force Auxiliaries, but that's a bit beyond the scope of EVE University anyways. So, do I have any questions at all? Oh, I saw that question about PvP Logi versus Incursion Logi. So a lot of Incursions, because of its nature as... Oh, I think they left already. Because of Incursion's nature as PvE, you can get very consistent switches and stuff like that, versus in PvP where you need to be very much on your toes. And Incursion Logi is usually the bare minimum, versus in PvP you want as much as possible, well, because you don't know how much reps you need to take in, stuff like that. Okay. Do I have any other questions at all that want to get asked before the practical element? Because I'll still take questions during the practical, but I suspect many here will be busy during the practical, trying to not die. Because I will be shooting you during the practical, at least later on. And if someone dies, then I need to just replace the ship. And we're fine. No. Like I mentioned, the very first PvP fleet I did was as Logi. You don't need to be good at PvP at like DPS role before you go into Logi. You can go into Logi whenever you'd like. Logi is widely a different skill set to DPS, so it helps to understand basic fleet commands like, hey, the Alliance warp, the Alliance take fleet warps, jump, so target this, target that, all anchor up. All those basic fleet commands are very helpful as a Logi as well, and like understanding what's going on the grid is very helpful. But those things, in the same way, you don't need to know those things to learn, right? If you're going to get into T2 Logi, I'd probably recommend against it initially, but T1 Logi is perfectly learnable if you know nothing else. That's how I started out. You could start out that way too. It's not a problem at all. There's some things that are more difficult, some things that are easier than DPS, especially when you're a new bro, where it's like, you won't be as effective, but like, who cares? It's fun. You don't need to be perfectly effective. But I hope that answers the question there. If you are joining me for the practical, make sure that you join the fleet that is up under Kevin, and I will soon start handing out ships here in a moment. Okay, excellent question. Aethra asks, watchlist starts to blink when an ally is getting locked. So it starts to blink when they're getting shot. How much faster the broadcast can show the request of the player as compared to the blinking watchlist? So watchlist only starts blinking when the player is getting shot at already, when damage is already rolling in. You can recognize when you're about to get shot as a player before you are shot by seeing that everyone has just locked you up. If everyone in the enemy fleet has locked you up, then chances are good that you're about to be shot, and you can broadcast before everything is shooting you, and give them an extra 2-3 seconds, maybe more, or give your Logi an extra 2-3 seconds, maybe even more, before damage starts rolling in. This is especially important for stuff like missile fleets, where it'll take the shots multiple seconds to reach their target, and you as a Logi will take a few seconds to lock a target, and during that time you don't want them to die. Yeah, and especially for stuff like armor Logi, you also don't want them to die while your reps are cycling and before they've completed their cycle. Excellent question, though. Excellent question. Auto clear broadcast. I'm not aware of a hotkey. Choff. I can just invite you to fleet. DigiX. Is there an auto clear broadcast on watch list? I don't believe so. In general, though, I will. Some people, the way they fly Logi is they will have 0 locked targets if they can get away with it. If they're like not in a cap chain Logi, for example, they will have 0 locked targets. And what they will do is they will watch their broadcast history, and they will lock the instant that someone broadcasts. They will lock it up, pre-cycle all their reps, and the moment the lock finishes, all the reps will cycle on. This is fine for in big fleets, but in smaller fleet, but this is fine in big fleets because you want those instant reps. But especially in smaller fleets with more limited Logi, you're going to want to be a bit more intelligent about how many locks you want to be holding on stuff, because if someone's pre-locked, you don't need to spend the 3-4 seconds locking before you can get reps on them. So, and so I'll finish Digi's question first. So generally, I won't personally clear the broadcast history basically ever, because I think that, in my experience, having the past broadcast is useful for keeping an eye on who's been dying, who's maybe going to be a future switch, who is likely to be shot frequently by a given FC if they're targeting certain ships. Holding a lock on them can be very valuable, but you can always hit the button to clear out the broadcast history if that is your desire. Some people will clear after every broadcast. That's not me, but some people do it, so I imagine they're not crazy, but it's not me. So, Ralakar asked, when someone broadcasts, do you instantly rep them or just lock and wait for them to take damage? So that gets into a little bit more of the, like, being a very good Logi is a lot about anticipation. If you're, for example, in Shield Logi, then your reps land the instant you hit the button. You definitely want to wait until they take damage before you hit the button, because otherwise the rep will be wasted. If you're an armor Logi, it's a bit more of a toss-up, because you don't know if someone broadcasted an error, they got locked by 2 or 3 people and panicked, or they got hit by a bomb damage and they panicked and hit the button when they heard their shield alarm go off. Stuff like that can make it so that there's a bit more doubt in the equation. Does this person actually need reps? Should I commit the reps to them? Because if I start repping them, there's a good chance if someone else is being shot, that person won't catch reps from me anymore because I'm repping somebody else. And that's a bit more of like, your discernment as a Logi and experience makes you a better Logi pilot than someone that's just following broadcast and nothing else. So I would say watch someone's health and look at grid, look at what is look at their name. If you recognize their name, is this person highly experienced and would they broadcast erroneously? Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, it's a bit more of a toss-up. I would say wait, especially if you're in shield. Otherwise, if you're in armor, and especially if you're up against like a big fleet that does a lot of damage quickly with missiles or drones or something like that, you can just slam the reps on and hope for the best. Especially if it's a big fleet. If you miss a rep cycle, the person's dead anyways. So, that's life. Okay, we'll switch the stream on over to Eve, and I'll switch my recording over to Eve. What bang. Move this over here. Alrighty. Can I get an X from someone like moderately experienced with Logi that can be my surrogate LC? DigiX, thank you very much. That will be helpful for later. Okay. Alright, you can see the ship I'm planning on using. I want everyone that's planning on flying an Osprey, go ahead and trade Kevin now. Trade Kevin now if you are planning on flying an Osprey. If you need to receive an Osprey, I should say. If you already have one, then fly your own, dang it. Double clicked on accident. Yep, that'll be perfectly fine, Zue. In fact, that'll be better than fine. You can see on here that there's some logic he fits, especially for Ospreys and Augurers, that because of how cap stable they are with their while receiving chain, they are obscenely they're able to fit really, really large reps. It'll be fine here, Zue, that you don't have a prop mod. In other fleets, like if you were in a PvP fleet, for example, that might be critically absent. That might be like catastrophic not being on. But here it'll be perfectly fine. You're just going to be, everyone will just orbit the cenotaph close so that they will, so that I can do damage, and we can do that part. Okay, Digi X I should make a separate squad. Change name. Okay, if you are in an Osprey now, I want you to move over to the Osprey squad. Otherwise, go ahead and trade Kevin now for a burst. If you cannot fly the T2 Osprey, go ahead and trade Kevin now for a burst. And I'll get these guys out here. And if you need a burst, go ahead and trade Kevin now for it. And if you have... I don't have free move on. One moment. Free move is now on. Fixed it. Thank you for the reminder. Okay. Let's see. Fancy things you can do as a FC, if I remember where it is. Show fleet composition. I have one person in a Merlin. I imagine that's the burst I handed out. Yeah, Vengujid. Make sure that you are in your Osprey, you have all the modules online, that you have rigs fitted as appropriate. I believe all of the Ospreys did not have, that had their rigs in cargo, so make sure that you fit your rigs. There's the burst. Excellent. And I want DigiX, go ahead and, if you could, make a separate chat for the Ospreys to be in so that we can practice a little bit of cap chain maintenance and and do that while we are getting shot at, because sometimes you die and you need to get replaced in the cap chain, or you're very, very sad. Who was it? Zua, I might pick on you for that fit, by the way. Not because I dislike you, but because I want to make sure that you learn. I might pick on you a little bit. Because this fit does things. Okay. Double check the fleet comp. Everybody is in ships. Excellent. Everyone go ahead and undock. I'll warp us off to a point in space so that we can do this with less likely chance of us all getting shot at by gankers, because you may not know this, but the ship I'm currently in is a teensy bit expensive, just a little bit expensive, and I'd rather it not die, you know, if I can help it. So I'll note on the side to everyone that if a bunch of gankers warp to us, keep the Cenotaph alive, please. I know it's been shooting at you all day, but keep it alive, please. It's just a little bit more pricey than I'd like to miss, than I'd like to lose. Take this fleet warp. I came in on an awkward angle, but that's perfectly fine. I think, do I still have a... I do still have a Logi chat! This is from years ago, if you need it.
How do you link the chat? I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out.
If you go to open the channel window, the plus button, you go to My Channels, where you have made the channel, and then you can drag it from there into the fleet chat as a linkable fleet. Okay, Digi, I'm trusting you to ensure that cap chain is up. So, everyone go ahead and, for now, orbit the Cenotaph at 500. Everyone orbit the Cenotaph 500. And cap chain up, cap chain up, cap chain up. That's the, if you are ever in a PvP fleet, if you hear the FC or LC saying that, that means that you need to get it up quick because combat's about to engage. After you warp, you will need to reset the cap chain and get everyone involved in it. So we'll do a few of those as we are going along, where I will re-warp us as if we were in a PvP fleet, and I was like repositioning the fleet around, trying to get an optimal engagement, stuff like that. But Digi, as my LC, let me know once cap chain is good. The way that you know if the cap chain is good is if you look above your capacitor on the bottom of the screen, there will be a little icon for your receiving a cap transmitter. Oh, side note, could someone maybe stream their screen so that people that cannot join the practical today, they can watch it if they so desire?
I cannot stream. I'm on my iPad with my Discord. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. Can someone else that's in a Logi do so? And then I can also gesticulate at the screen a little bit, because that's just how my brain works. Molly Crichton, thank you. You are the hero that we needed today. So if you look at Molly Crichton's screen, above the capacitor, there's a little icon for cap transmitter. Molly, if you can mouse over that cap transmitter on the bit just above your capacitor, you'll see that it shows you who you are receiving cap from. If those two names are the same names that you're giving cap to, then you're doing great. You got the cap chain good. Alrighty. Does anyone have any questions so far? Ooh, the feedback form. Good call. The thing I forgot to do. Does anyone have it handy? I don't think I have it handy. Where is it? Where is it? Does anyone have it handy? I'm a fool and I forgot to keep it handy. I forgot. I am the fool. Give me 1 second, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to give us a fleet warp and we can practice. Take this fleet warp and then reset up the chain once we land, so that I'm multitasking. Maybe it'll be in Teacher's Lounge. That would be a logical place for it to be. Excellent. I found it. It was in the pinned messages. Perfect. Okay. If you'd like to leave feedback, that is the place to do so. If you're in the practical, focus on the practical for now. Is anybody not receiving their two and giving their two?
Just the lonely burst.
Perfect. Burst, you are doing a great job. You're actually going to be very helpful for this operation soon, because you're the squishiest thing on grid, which means that everyone will need to be able to save you frequently, because I'm going to shoot at you in particular, because you're easiest thing to shoot at. Go ahead and take this fleet warp. Okay. We'll set it up another time without pressure, and then I will start, I'll call people. If you already have the Korsiki bookmarks open, that would be perfect. Make sure that you have the Korsiki bookmarks open. I think I can link them, actually. I think that would be super, super cool. Go ahead and open them up. I'm just bouncing us around the UFC pings right now to give us places to land. Capturing up, capturing up, capturing up. And I will ask people to warp off as if they had died, and then the cap chain will need to reform around them missing. And that is how we will practice that operation. Cap chain up, cap chain up, cap chain up. This is one of those skills that if you can put up the cap chain in under like 3-4 seconds, like as fast as you can lock, pretty much. If you can put it up that quick, it makes the FC very, very happy because that means he doesn't need to worry about you getting zapped off grid before you can effectively rep anybody. It's one of those. It's one of the skills that you'll need to pick up. And for example, I would probably say that when you are doing when you're like doing something like LLA that we did earlier with maulers and augurers, Molly, you're pulling a lot of range there. When you're doing maulers and augurs, I would say make sure that you do this on every gate you can, pretty much. You want to be lightning quick setting up cap chain, because a lot of the times you'll land, need to set up cap chain, and immediately start repping before the cap chain's even solid. Stuff like that, where it needs to be quick frequently. Sometimes you'll get on grid and wait there for like a minute or two or an hour before anybody shows up, but we won't worry about that for now. Okay, I want David Gazai, go ahead and warp off. David Gazai, go ahead and warp off as if you had died. And do all the things that you would do if you had died. Like leaving the chat at saying -1, all that. David Gazai, go ahead and warp off, and we'll reset the chain around you. David Gazai and Tutig. Tutig also warp off. Just warp off anywhere but here. You can go to one of the pings on this grid, or you can go leave the grid, all that. Just warp off, warp off. This is how we will simulate you having died. And reset the chamber around them. Yep, make sure you put the -1 in the Logi chat so that they know they're not going, and you leave the chat, and that tells them, hey, I need to look at that again, because they see the flashing, and see, oh no, he is dead, and I cannot cap chain him anymore. So, if you are a highly skilled Omega pilot, chances are good that you can go minutes with only one cap incoming. And that it is not a critical thing that you get both in and out going again quickly. If you are in an Osprey, if you're in an Alpha clone, you're going to need cap, like, within 30 seconds, basically. David and Tutig, come on back, and we'll reset chainer with you guys back in. Yep. Yeah, the lower skilled pilots will be extremely cap unstable. So, that's one of those, like, if you're better, if you've spent more time skilling into Ospreys and cap income and stuff like that, then it'll be less scary. If you haven't, then it will be more scary. And that's one of those where it's like, Alpha clone can still do it perfectly fine. It's just a little bit more demanding on the skill side to make sure things work. So David, Gazai, and Tutig, go ahead and come on back. You can just warp straight to Kevin. Once you're back on grid and ready to cap chain up, make sure you rejoin the Logi chat. Make sure and put a +1 in that Logi chat once you have re-entered it. This is to let them know, hey, I'm back on grid. Maybe something happened like something like if you got booshed off. If Boucher is like command destroyers can take them and everyone and up to 25 people, like within 5 kilometers of them, 200 kilometers to 100 kilometers away, and that'll break up chain. If you got nabbed by that, the FC or LC might say, if you got booshed, just warp off and back. And so that in the same way, you would just put a -1 leave fleet chat so that, and the chain would reorganize. When you got back, you would +1 and get back into the chain afterwards. Alrighty. Let's see. Molly Crichton, Ralakar, and Ezrokrad. Go ahead and warp off as if you had died. Warp that is Molly Crichton, Ralakar, and Ezrokrad. Go ahead and warp off as if you had died. I'm sorry, Burst, that you're not getting a lot of love right now. You will get it soon. Sorry.
No issue.
So as they're coming back in, they're always just coming back into orbit, like at 500 or optimal range from a specific ship that they're repping, correct?
So, in general, If you are in something like a burst or or a frigate logi, you will want to be very, very close to your target. But for cruiser logi, if you mouse over your range, you'll see that you have a lot of range here. You have like over 30 kilometers of range. So in general, if you were coming back, you'd probably want to warp back to your logi commander, your chosen anchor for the fleet, as opposed to, and if such was not existent, like nobody had claimed LC, you didn't have a separate anchor, you would what you would do is you would warp back to your FC, whoever your normal anchor was. In general, if you're using cruisers, you probably have longer range. Ralakar, Molly, Ezrocrat, go ahead and come back. Everyone go ahead and come back, rejoin the chain. So you would warp back to your LC or FC, depending on the fleet's situation. A lot of the time when we're having cruisers especially, or like armor frigates have a decent bit of range, like 10 to 30 kilometers instead of like 3 to 15 that shield gets, then you might still do an LC. You would want to warp back to your LC. Does that answer your question?
It does, but then even in that case, as you're warping back to an LC, you're warping and orbiting him at a certain range.
So for when you're anchoring up on someone, generally you will want to keep at range that person at 1 kilometer. So
okay.
That's what, whenever anybody says anchor up, that's generally what they mean. If they mean something different like approach or orbit, they'll probably say it out loud. But if someone just says anchor, they mean keep at range 1 kilometer. And so, because especially with cruisers, fights are pretty quick as far as like on-grid movement. When you warp back, there's a very good chance that you'll be fairly far from your LC. You probably won't be so far that you can't cap chain up and get the chain going again. But David and Digi and John. Okay, now just Digi and John. Perfect. Yep, make sure that David gets back into the chain. So that's what I was saying. When you warp back to your LC or FC, chances are good that you'll be fairly far by the time that you land. So if that's the case, you probably want to like heat a cycle of micro drive and try to catch up best you can. And if you land like outside of like cap chain range, then you probably don't want to join the channel until you're ready to get back into the chain. Versus, chances are good that you'll land like 30 kilometers off and you can get underway pretty quickly and get back in chain and stuff.
So as you're getting popped, I mean, your chances of coming back, depending on where you're roaming, are next to nothing sometimes, right?
Sometimes, yeah. Either you'll get caught by reps and not die, or you won't get the chance to warp off, is the common thing. There's some reasons that you might end up warping off and needing to come back to fleet again after still, but they're less common. Let's see, who should David be receiving from? David should be catching cap chain from Digi and Zua right now.
Not everybody's in the Neology chat. That's the problem. So I'm trying to invite them.
Okay, I was just going off of the Kev's Logi chat.
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes chat channels are also weird and like just won't show people rejoining. That's just a fact of life. Okay. Practice some of that. Let's get some live fire going. So now I'm going to start shooting you guys. And I want you guys to respond as if you were being shot normally. Like if this was a fleet, what would you do if you started getting shot and locked? Jua, don't call me on that. Excellent job. So David, what's happening right now? Yep, you're getting shot. So when you're getting shot, you want to broadcast, and you want to broadcast promptly so that you start catching reps from all your buddies. So in this instance, you already have people locking you up, so you should be all right. But make sure that you broadcast promptly. In this instance, you have a single ship shooting at you, so it's not very scary. But in some instances, you will have 50 ships shooting at you, and they will be. And if you don't broadcast for a quarter of a second, or like 1 or 2 seconds, then you will die and not catch any reps. Things can switch very, very quickly. Also note that this ship in particular has a special module that'll continue to damage a target after it's been hit. Yep, no worries, David. That's why we are here. Just to get people used to broadcasting on time and stuff.
If you have any questions, put them in Fleet or in Discord, not in Logi chat. Kevin is not there.
Correct. I'm not in the Logi chat because I'm not a Logi ship. Good broadcast, Relicar. Yep. Okay. Do you see many multi-boxers doing Logi? So that depends on the situation. Sometimes you will see big multi-box Logi stuff, especially with like home fronts or incursions. You'll see fairly frequently those kinds of fleets of multi-box Logi. Don't forget to broadcast SRO card. There we go. We'll work on getting that a little bit quicker as well, but no worries. You'll notice that a bunch of people are dying because of the mechanics of the ship that I'm currently using. That's alright. You guys aren't doing anything wrong there, but this is making it extra difficult that you're going to have to rep multiple targets, more than you have reps to give out, kind of thing. But multi-boxed Logi is fairly difficult, just because Logi is a very demanding role. And so if you see it done well, you'll almost never see it. You'll almost never see good Logi multi-box, just because it's very, very demanding as far as like what is needed to do to be done. Better, David, better. Good job, good job. Good broadcast there, Ezra Crad. Good job, good job.
You have a question, Fleet.
Yep. So, Liam, sometimes, in some fleets anyways, the broadcast for no longer need reps will be in position broadcast. You'll see this especially a lot in like the HQ communities for incursions will use in position as I no longer need reps. However, a lot of the time, because you just don't want to stuff up the broadcast history too much, you'll just do no broadcast as I don't need reps. And you'll just expect people to notice. That kind of thing, if that makes sense. If you want to set you can set a broadcast a hotkey for the broadcast. You will need to go into your settings. You'll need to go into your own settings and set it manually. Do a good job. Good job broadcasting. Let's see, is there anyone else I have not shot yet and made sure they know how to push the buttons? So, for example, I have it set to Shift A as my armor broadcast and Shift S as my shield broadcast. You can set yours to, like, if you have a mouse that has extra buttons, you can set it to a mouse button. If you set it to letters, make sure that you're not, like, frequently in text boxes, because text boxes like to eat your inputs for things like that. So it's like you'll text in the box, you'll type into the box before it, and it won't do the broadcast as much, and it won't do the broadcast at all. That kind of thing. Oh, okay. I believe that is everyone. I want to say. Make sure that I get a broadcast out of everyone, that everyone knows what it looks like that you start dying. You'll also notice that if I have shot you, there is a little icon above your capacitor for breacher pods. That's the thing this ship does. Is it, when it shoots you with the breacher pod, it makes it so that you lose health equal to the size of your ship. That's why I'm not putting the breacher pod very much on the our frigate and mostly on the cruisers. And it smacks through all of your resists as well. So and that's how the like mechanic works. So targeting, untargeting. That's going to become, especially with this, in this instance of how I am running this, is I'm making it more hard than it would normally be. In general, an enemy fleet will shoot a single target as hard as they can, and then if it doesn't break, they'll move on immediately. In this instance, there's going to be lots of people at once that need reps separately, whereas so it'll be a little bit different. But what I'll generally do is I'll keep my two cap chain buddies like on my second row of locks, and I'll cycle through the top locks for people who need reps in terms of like non-cap chain buddy locks. And generally I'll hold on to a lock for maybe, like, in a full big fight, I'll hold on to a lock for maybe 30 seconds, but to see if people are switching back to him, that kind of thing. Good broadcast, good broadcasts. Good job, guys. Let's start picking on people a little bit more. I'm starting to put out some newts on you guys. So generally, if I was really trying to kill you guys, I would newt one thing and shoot the other things, because I know that my newts are able to pressure down your capacitor and make it so that it is harder for you to hold everything up. So I'm throwing out some newts now, trying to push through people. And so I'll back to that question of locking and unlocking targets. I'll generally be unlocking, especially once I start getting to the limit, I'll want to keep 2 locks open at all times. So if I am close to that limit, to my lock limit, I will start use Control Shift and click on the target that I don't want to be locked anymore. On which target? There is indeed. If you were to mouse over the repper, then it will highlight it on the ship that it is on. So, if, for example, if I highlight my newt, I see which newt it is on Zua right now. And I can use that to see who a given target is on. The other thing you can do, if you want to stop sending repairs to somebody, is you can go to the locks portion and click on the module, like the little module icon on the locked target that you want to turn off. This will manually decycle only that module. So that's another way that you can turn off just one target in a lock, that kind of thing. Thank you very much for coming, Choff. Is he still in fleet? Choff, How long ago was that? That was 2 minutes ago. Probably still. Choff, once you dock back up in the Fortizar, go ahead and pass me back that Osprey if you could. These are out of the strategic fund, so I want to make sure that we still have them available. And so, if you are getting pressured capacitor-wise, then you might want to do things like decycle some of your reps. Try to make sure that you can keep up all the reps you can and not break the chain. Things like that. Contract it back to me if you're leaving early. If you are not leaving early, then what you can do is we'll just trade all the ships back in once we dock up the fleet. Yeah, once the practical portion is done, we will be docking fleet back up. And so once that occurs, then we will be handing them all back manually. So if you're leaving early, just throw a contract on it. It's the easiest way to do it for me. Okay, let's start pushing you guys. Let's start really trying to push through you guys. So this ship, for example, I think the most pods I put out so far is 3. Let's go. It can go up to 6. So I'm going to start throwing out more pods to get more damage on more people. Hey, Digi, you ran away. Do I need to chase you down, Digi?
No, I'm actually orbiting you at 10K, and I'm trying to get everybody to orbit me at 1K, so that way they actually move around.
Yeah, it just makes it harder for the sake of the example, you know.
I understand. I'll come back to you.
Yep. If you want to orbit a little bit wider, you can orbit at like 5 kilometers. Just because the breacher pod that I'm using to get the like stacking damage on somebody is has like 12 kilometers of range. It is extremely short range, which is why I just had everyone sit up on me. But yes, the great thing about the Cenotaph is that it's only 1 build, whereas if I wanted to do this with like a Chronos, it would run me closer to 2. And that's why I was like, I can do this cheaper and it'll be more interesting for me. And for everyone involved. So yes. Also, fun fact, I was slightly concerned when I was thinking of this plan of how much rep output can Ospreys actually do, because if you don't, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to like actually kill you guys. So I double checked, since these guys do the breacher pods go through true damage and ignore all your resists. I just need to look at the HP for this instance. For these Ospreys, the breacher pods are equivalent to a single Osprey worth of reps. And I can stack up to 6 of them at once. Let's throw that on David. Yep, David, don't forget to broadcast for reps. There we go. So, for the sake of example, is why I'm asking people to broadcast for reps. I know that since everyone here is watching each other on watch list and stuff like that, that everyone is holding fine and will be seen because everyone's watching super closely and stuff. But it as practice, you know. Let's see. Digi, don't forget to broadcast either.
Wrong chat, but Zoe, adjust your cap transfer.
Yes, good call. Good broadcast, John. So I'll let everybody know for the fun fact that this is actually the first time I've used a cenotaph like this. It's very fun. This ship is more optimized towards like shooting battleships. It would be very, very scary against battleships. But it works pretty good here, honestly. If you're being nuded and you can't, like, to the point that you cannot keep the cap chain up, generally what you'll do is you'll start drawing your own reps off and just trusting that people will adjust appropriately, as opposed to make sure that you keep the chain up, but you might pull your reps to conserve your own capacitor. If you're being nuded to the point where it's impossible to keep even the cap chain going, which is, I'll note, extremely difficult. Like it takes a good person with a big nuding ship to be able to actually break a chain with newts, just because of the nature of how it works. If that's the case, you might broadcast for cap as you did there, and like it'd be like, we need to readjust the chain over this, because part of it is that to initiate the cap transfer, or you only need a little bit of the capacitor, and you keep getting more cap from people giving it to you. So even if you're like balancing on 0, there's a good chance you can still keep your cap running. And so it's very, very rare that you'll be so pressured cap-wise that it's impossible for you to keep the chain going. So Tutik, are you still repping your repping people, or did you fully pull your reps off to try to keep your cap alive? Yeah. So if you're losing chain, then stop repping and try to keep the chain up first, because the chain is a higher priority than reps are, honestly, under newt pressure at least. And if newts are pushing you out of being able to rep entirely, then it's more preferable that we not force the chain to reset and give them another target and like force someone out of the path, out of the chain, than it is to continue to continue to put out the meager reps. So I can decrease the amount of reps that you can output with newts, but it's very hard for me to break the chain with it, at least with this ship. If I had like an Armageddon that was full newt fit, then I could probably break the chain with it. But this one only has 3 newts, so not too scary. What I should have brought this with a smart bomb as well, so that I could cause more chaos amongst you guys.
Not in high sec unless you want to be Concord.
It would be dangerous in high sec, but as long as it only hits valid targets, it won't automatically call Concord. So like right now, I think it'd be fine. I don't think smart bombing drones gets Concord involved, if I remember right. Anyways.
I didn't think you could bubble or smart bomb in high sec.
So in high sec, you can't bubble. You're correct. You also cannot launch like bombs from stealth bombers. That's also disallowed entirely. But smart bombs, the ones that are based on a ship, are allowed in high sec. As in, you can do it. How wise it is to do it, much more subject to criticism. Because it takes one, like, particularly, it just takes one person that knows you're smart bombing to suddenly kill your ship that is smart bombing. So, like, if you're in, like, a battleship and you're using smart bombs and you're ratting, then if any old person shows up and pilots up next to you and you smart bomb, then you'll get concorded because you hit them with the smart bomb. Well, Van Gudrid should not be cap chained to anybody because it's a frigate and doesn't have cap transfers. No worries, no worries.
You were saying the scythe isn't worth it?
It's not really. I don't. So this is an opinion. This isn't like a hard meta thing. The scythe is just a bit undertuned in comparison to the other Logi ships in particular. It's pretty meh. It's like workable, but like barely workable. It's just between the slot layout and its awful native capacitor, it's very hard to make it stable either by like with cap inject or with like passive regen. It's just very hard to make stable, which makes it a kind of a bad logi. And at the same time, it doesn't have the slots or native like buffer necessary to be very tanky. So it's not tanky, it's not stable, and it's equivalent for reps, or it's equivalent or lesser to reps than an Osprey.
I'll just wait till I hit T2 then.
Yeah, Scimitar's much better. Like for as far as the solo options go, Osprey is very strong, and honestly, if you're in a situation where you can't, even if you can't get a, I'm gonna start decycling stuff. By the way, hey, does anyone else have any other questions or stuff or things they want to test for practical things? Yeah, that is part of the Logi chat. So yeah, Vanguard, make sure you're not in the Logi chat because you can't cap chain with them. Yep. So I just wanted to get you guys used to watching health bars drop, responding to them, keeping people up, broadcasting on time. All those things are the main element of the practical. But yeah, as I was saying, Osprey, even in a solo capacity, I would prefer an Osprey to a Scythe, because it's going to be about as fast, it's going to be about as tanky, it's going to be able to have a remote cap for the fleet, all that kind of stuff, that I would prefer a solo Osprey to a Scythe in the vast majority of instances.
FC, can you please go over the optimal and the actual range, and because it wasn't used to be like this before, like 2-3 years ago?
I don't remember it changing. So which part do you mean used to not be like this? I mean,
Used to just be range, not there's no optimal on the remote field or armor repper.
are you thinking of Rodiva or Zarmast? Because I know that so Rodiva and Zarmast are the Triglavian version of the Logi ships. They are armor only. They get bonuses for just armor. They have a special repper that has like a hard limit on its range. Everyone go ahead and align towards the Fortizar. They have a hard limit on their range, but I remember playing several years ago, and it always had the optimal fall off. The cap transfer has a hard limit as well. So the optimal range is where you'll get 100% of your rep. At the fall off, you'll get half of your rep, and then past that, it peters off pretty quickly. So you generally want to be either at your optimal or maybe a little bit further if you're like manually positioning the fleet. Fortizar, I broadcasted. It's Horizon. It should be in broadcasts as well. And so, fun fact: when you rep someone, you pick up whatever timers they have. So, since you're repping each other and you haven't been shooting me, none of you guys should have gun timers right now. And that note of like you pick up whatever timers. Oh, I've warped myself. Everyone warp to the Fortizar. Everyone warp yourself. Because that picking up timers is really important if you're in nullsec or lowsec. Because if you rep somebody that has recently shot another person, you will pick up their gun timer and be like unable to jump gates, unable to tether, unable to dock for those 60 seconds the same way they can't. And in low sec, if you rep someone or cap someone that has a suspect timer, you will get the suspect timer as well, which means that when you go into high sec, if you still have that suspect timer, other people can shoot you. If you rep someone or cap someone that has a criminal timer, then Concord will kill you in high sec still, until the timer runs out. Oh, look at John. Fancy over here using the bookmarks to get the deep tether. No, you do not. So, I call it gun timer. I think that the game is like an aggression timer, is different than the capsuleer log-off timer. Everyone go ahead and dock. Everyone dock up. The capsule log off timer for 15 minutes means that if you were to like disconnect or log out of the game, your ship would stay in space until that timer ran out. So like if you were like logging off in a system after you got shot, or were in the middle of a fight and you tried to log off, you would still be there to be shot at. The aggression timer, you might hear sometimes called a gun timer, is for 60 seconds after, or the 60-second timer that stops you from docking, tethering, jumping, stuff like that. I think it'll also prevent you from refitting off of like services. Once you've docked, if you got a Osprey or burst from me, go ahead and pass it back now. So you can right-click Trade Kevin, and put the ship. Make sure you get out of the ship, and then you can trade it back. You will need to get out of the ship to give it to me. I know that might be mind-boggling, but you cannot be in a ship and give it to me at the same time, unfortunately. I would love to have your pods, but CCP will not let me. Okay. Excellent. I think the only one that I am missing is from Choff. So I might DM him and be like, hey, could you throw that my way? Yes, you can still collect frozen corpses. If you pod someone, they leave behind a corpse, and you can take that corpse. Okay, let's go ahead and stop the stream. Do command bursts activate suspect tags? You know, that's an excellent question, Devin. I wish I knew. I don't think it does. I don't think it does, because that would be kind of weird. It's a bit less deliberate than a rep is, and you don't need to have like yellow safety to activate a command burst. So I imagine not, but I don't know. Yes, it will give you an aggression timer, so you can't dock, jump, refit, stuff like that. No, it's a full 60-second 2-tick. The same as if you shot someone or scrammed them. It might feel like 30, but, you know. Okay. Before I cut off the recording, does anybody have any questions about anything else, whether we covered it in the logic class or not? Whatever you'd like. Correct, Digi. Oh yeah, tons to manage. That's the fun part, you know. If it was easy, it wouldn't be worth it. That's part of why Logi is my favorite thing to fly, is because it is extremely expressive of your skill. If you get good at Logi, then you are a force to be reckoned with, kind of thing. If you get very good with Logi, you can just like do incredible things. I mentioned you know how I mentioned briefly that like getting the feel of what targets and stuff like that are viable. What ships are viable and stuff like that, and what might be the next target. If you're like looking at grid, you're zoomed out, a lot of the time you can tell who's being shot out by like lasers and explosions on their ship. You can tell who's about to get shot at by positioning, where like the person out of position is probably the one that's about to get shot, and you can maybe reposition to go grab them and give them reps, and you can have them pre-lock so before they even broadcast you're repping them, stuff like that, where you can get really 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 good at Logi. We tried to kill him, but another ship showed up and got his rep ridiculous. Oh, yeah, someone else showed up and gave him rep boosts, which made him a lot harder to kill. That makes sense. So yeah, I guess not. I guess it doesn't share suspect tags. That makes sense. The other ship could not repair him, though, because so in HiSec, if you repair someone with a limited engagement timer, you instantly become criminal and die to Concord. Which is why HiSec war decks are really, 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 really funky. Because you can only rep someone if they have a war deck with the enemy team the enemy corporation, and it's the same war deck that you are engaged with. So even if you're in another corp that's engaged with a war with the same target next to someone from a different corp with the same war deck, you cannot rep them in high sec. High sec mechanics are garbage. Oh, excellent question, Digi. Overheating. Overheating is an excellent question. So overheating speeds up your rep cycle, and the amount of, or more recent change made it so that it also it increases how much repair you send out. In general, heat. Infleet from Malakar. That's an excellent question about as well. So heat is extremely strong for Logi. You want to be heating like aggressively. So most like heat sources are pretty quick, especially like prop mods and guns and stuff like that will overheat very quickly. Reps do not generate a lot of heat. So you can heat them really hard. You can punish those reps very hard and keep them heating all the time, pretty much. So I would say, especially at the beginning of a fleet fight, if you just started a fight with someone, you want to be very aggressive on your heat. You want to be like, first cycle of every target that you're going after, you want it to be hot cycling, so that you can try to catch them. Once they are caught by multiple other Logi as well, then you can decycle heat, wait for the next target switch, stuff like that. If you are like landing reps on someone and they're still going down, just keep the reps hot. Okay, watch your heat and stuff, but be very aggressive with it. Logi is very good at heating. It gets a big bonus from it, and you can heat for a long time before burning stuff out. That's an excellent question. I would say the big thing is when you're like just picking up a broadcast, heat that first cycle, especially if you're an armor or a Logi. Then because you want those reps to land sooner. If your reps are hot in armor, then the rep will land sooner because the cycle is faster. And that increases your chances that you'll actually be able to land reps on them. It'll increase the amount of reps on them, so other people will have more chances, stuff like that. Good question. Any other questions before I hang up Fleet? My voice is getting scratchy. That's how you know I got excited and talked a bunch.
Just want to say thank you. This was a lot of fun and actually a good learning experience. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll repost the feedback form. The feedback form is in the classroom chat, so that even if you're not in the fleet, you already left, whatever the case. You can see it and give feedback if you so desire. I hope everyone enjoyed and has a wonderful night.